This week, a special edition of Conflict Zone as we look back at some of the highlights of the interviews that we've recorded recently. The whole aim has been to hold the powerful and influential to account, and of course, to ask the questions on behalf of you, the audience, who couldn't ask them for yourselves.
World leaders and top politicians enter the conflict zone every week. Hot topics, controversial answers. Tim Sebastian puts the spotlight on current issues.
I want to show you a picture that emerged on September the 1st, which was published by Human Rights Watch.
Yes.
And it apparently shows the lashing of a 22-year-old woman named Zarmina, who was arrested in Gore province a few weeks before. She and a man were accused of zina, which I gather is sex outside marriage, a crime carrying a sentence of between 5 and 15 years in jail. They were sentenced instead to 100 lashes each by a formal court, part of your judicial structure, that knows very well that lashing is illegal. Why is this still going on?
First of all, the inquiry has been made.
This is horrifying, isn't it?
It is horrifying.
Before we put it away, I mean,
No.
it is a horrifying picture.
Do you want me to hold it to the public? I'll be delighted.
No.
I'll be delighted.
No,
This
I'm very
is
interested
part
to
of
hear.
our shame. We've inherited situations that are shameful, that are absolutely despicable. And in Gore, we want to make sure that war is made secure for a rule-based approach.
A special rapporteur on contemporary forms of slavery visited Ghana a couple of years ago and gave a very depressing picture of slavery, of sexual exploitation, of children as young as 3 being forced to work in order to provide some care for them or their parents. How can that go on?
Sometimes you have to walk through these reports and do a careful analysis of these reports. I mean, how can a child 3 years old be forced to work? I mean, what kind of productivity can you get from a 3-year-old child? In some cases, there are cases of social acculturation.
Well, even if it was a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old.
No, I know. But I'm saying that if you just take these reports on the face value, you might come to conclusions that are not right. Our government is concerned about child labor. We have a Ministry of Gender and Children that is 24/7 looking at issues of child labor. And I'm saying that if you rely on some of these reports that are issued on Africa, some of them are misleading. Why would a 3-year-old child be forced to work?
In May this year, Human Rights Watch condemned the Gulf countries, Qatar included, for the widespread practice of penalizing legitimate dissent in the name of national security. GCC rulers have cast a blanket of repression over the region in response to their citizens' calls for political reform. That's Human Rights Watch. You know Human Rights Watch. They don't make this stuff up either.
I invite you with the Human Rights Watch today to come with me to Qatar and see if we have a single person in jail because of his, political intention or because of his...
So they got it wrong, did they?
In Qatar, we don't have a single...
And President Obama got it wrong in April when he said GCC governments should be more responsive to their people and to the importance of distinguishing between genuine threats and dissatisfaction.
Are you talking about GCC here or Qatar?
Qatar as part of the GCC.
I'm entitled to speak about Qatar in your show here. So if it's Qatar...
Well, you also have a role as chairman of the GCC Council at the moment, don't you? The Gulf Cooperation Council. So you can speak for both.
No. In your program,
you can speak for both.
No, in your program, I'm in capacity to speak on Qatar, and I can tell you and assure you that we don't have a single prisoner in Qatar because of a prisoner of conscience or prisoner because he wanted to have reform.
Well, you know perfectly well that Amnesty International disagrees with you on that.
No, it's not a question of taking it seriously. It's a question of let's get a fair assessment of the situation. Do you know how many times we in Rwanda are concerned about what's happening in the US and Germany and other places?
Sure, and you make your points. And you make your points.
We are concerned, but we don't make it
and
a
so
definition.
do the human rights organizations.
We don't make it a definition of the countries. These are problems that are everywhere. So
they're telling you that they're
country,
disappointed because on the one hand your economy is growing and there's reason to be optimistic in that
There's
way.
nothing wrong with disappointment.
But on the human rights area,
there's
you're
nothing wrong with
disappointing
disappointment.
badly.
We don't need to agree on everything as countries. We don't have to agree on everything.
So it's just purely people misunderstanding your country.
It's not just misunderstanding, it's wanting to portray the country a certain way.
So you don't accept any of these criticisms which are made in a constructive way. You deny everything.
Absolutely don't. I am saying each case needs to be taken in the context of the politics of Rwanda and these countries and organizations and be looked at. It's not the truth of the Bible.
I'm not quoting the Bible, and these are serious allegations that are being made about your country, time and time again.
Let's just agree that they remain allegations. When you adjudicate these, then we can sit and talk.
Well, who's blocking these reforms? Who's blocking these reforms?
The reforms
Why are they taking so long?
They cannot be implemented in 1 year. I mean, you have the law, but then in order to train these people on this law, to create the institutions of control, then that will ensure that these people are really respecting human rights, it will take some time. Because these people were, let's say, practicing what they know during, let's say, 30 or 40 years.
Mr. Marshall, you're a powerful man. You're a powerful politician. You're General Secretary of what was the largest party. If you can't use your influence to do this, what's the point in having a revolution?
Democracy transition is not, let's say, a decision or political will only. It's a long-term process.
This is going backwards to the old days.
No.
This is going backwards. The fact that you're still having these accusations of
it's
basic human rights abuses.
It's not because one lawyer said this that...
it's not one lawyer, it's the UN Special Rapporteur, it's Human Rights Watch, it's Amnesty International, it's a major human rights organization.
I mean, we are making a lot of progress and there is a lot of reports who are saying that the political will is there. But the problem is that we are having this war against terrorism, and it's very difficult in this context of war. I mean, to have not only, let's say, to reform the security forces, even to reform the, let's say, the economic institutions.
There are credible accusations of human rights violations from international organizations, both against your troops and against the other side as well. Are these going to be investigated?
First of all, no. Because we have a completely different size of this violation, and all the violation from Ukrainian side is properly investigated with the presence of the international inspector, and all the things from this part of the border is not. And this is our difference. We are civilized European states who keep their promises, and they are bandits and terrorists. And I invite you to go there and to have an evidence with your own eyes. What is the difference?
Amnesty International said both sides were arbitrarily holding civilians who have not committed any crime but were sympathizing with the opposite side.
If you see the statistics, how many criminals in Ukrainian army was put in the investigation and in responsibility, that would be the answer for the Amnesty International.
How does a group like ISIS or ISIL stalemate a 28-nation military alliance led by the United States? That's quite an achievement, isn't it?
Well, what it is
to force you into a stalemate.
What it is an acceptance of the fact that we are conducting a campaign that does not involve the land elements of that coalition. And so as we try to develop or enable land elements that are on the ground, you can understand the conundrum.
These 65 countries haven't done much, have they? You haven't done much. Why?
Why? They haven't done.
Countries
I think Germany has done a lot.
Germany
has done a lot. We talk to the Turks. We try to improve the situation at the border between Turkey and Syria and things like that. We have done it already. We started already, and all the discussions are going on. The problem is Syria is a very difficult country because of Assad is helped by the Russians, and without the Russians, Assad would be gone instantly. But I don't know even if this would be better, because there are so many different problems, and it's really crazy difficult.
So you don't mind ISIS at all? You
No,
think they're
no,
okay?
no,
You-
no,
you-
no.
You'd be happy to
cannot-
see the black flag
you
flying
cannot-
over Damascus?
No, not at all, not at all. You cannot leave the Syrian people between the tyranny of the regime and brutality of the terrorist group, and as if the people in the middle.
But those are the choices, aren't they?
No, no, no. There is other choices. The other choices is that we.
You tried those and they failed.
We wasn't seriously trying to help the people to gain their freedom.
Why
to be
not?
honest with
Why
you.
weren't you? Why weren't you doing that? You were saying you were doing that.
Reluctant, maybe the fears of the future, maybe we lack, some of us lack the trust that the people of Syria can rule and can have the Syria which they want, the democratic Syria, Syria inclusive for everyone, and united Syria.
What Hollande did was saying, not murderers, but it's an army. So he turned just brutal, bad murderers into warriors of a foreign state. Why do you do this? This is the wet dream of the terrorist, to be called an army of a foreign state. So I think it was a very big mistake and a very big victory.
The worst thing is that you're not going to protect the innocents.
No,
who
no,
are being-
let's
who are
stop,
being-
let's stop it.
who
You're
are
making
being
arguments that are not right.
Who are being raped, who are being beaten up, who are being enslaved, who are being beheaded. You don't want to protect them because you don't want to intervene.
You're too fast. You are just claiming that there's no way of stopping Qatar funding ISIS. Who's saying this? I mean, who is bowing every day to Qatar? That's the German government, that's the French government. I think there's a point now in putting up the pressure towards Qatar, towards Saudi Arabia, towards the Emirates, just going there, delivering weapons to these countries, and then hoping ISIS will go away. This is not a politic.
Yeah, but easily said, because they've been under pressure to stop terrorist funding for the last 10, 15 years, and it hasn't happened.
Who put pressure on them?
The EU and the US.
Who?
The
I
US.
never saw this.
The US.
I
The
never
US.
saw this. I'm telling
If
you
you
this
read the
story.
State Department human rights reports year after year after year, go back 10 years, you'll find we had these discussions, we put this pressure on them. They're not stopping.
So, and
Time
what is
and
Germany
time
doing?
again.
I'm a member of the German parliament. I know that Germany is doing nothing. The German ambassador in Qatar didn't even know who is the minister responsible in Qatar to go after the funding. They don't care at all.
Look, I care about every child in Israel, whether he's Jewish, whether he's Arab. We're in an imperfect place. We're not in La La Land. We're in a reality, a very tough reality, where we want to create a beautiful Jewish democracy in Israel while we're surrounded by the craziest people in the world. It might be easier to live in London and sit and give comments than when you live here, but we live in a reality.
And do you think you're helped in doing that, in creating the kind of society you want, by bulldozing the houses of suspected terrorists?
Not suspected. We're talking about bulldozing the house of terrorists.
Something
And
that's been strongly
no
condemned in the
suspe-
past by the international community
that's
and was
okay.
given up by the army. The army gave it up themselves.
Look, here's the deal. These terrorists are willing to die. Now, if someone's coming and willing to kill you, and you know he doesn't care, he's willing to commit suicide, then the only way to prevent it is if he knows that his house will be destroyed, and therefore you create the deterrence necessary to prevent the next terror attack. We don't want to do this. But when hundreds of Muslims, radical Islamic terrorists are out to kill me and my family, yes, I will defend myself. And you know what? I'm not going to apologize for it.
In 2008, you were very careful in your denials. You told Polish radio ZET, I can say that from what I know about the time when I was responsible for military installations, that there were no secret prisons in Poland where Muslim terrorists were supposedly interrogated.
In any military installation.
But the rumors and the investigations had been going on. The European Parliament investigated 2 years before that, 2006. When you gave those denials,
Which were accurate.
Which were to the letter, yes, but you knew that this had been going on, didn't you?
There are things that I'm still bound by the Polish Official Secrets Act.
I understand, but you had inquired when the rumors presumably first
I told the
came
truth,
out.
as usual.
You told the truth. You stayed with the letter of the truth, but maybe not the spirit.
Thank you for admitting it.
But not the spirit, perhaps, because you knew that this had been going on.
It's your opinion.
your Prime Minister Orban said. He said, they're overrunning us, talking about the migrants. They're not just banging on the door, they're breaking the door down on top of us. Hungary is under threat, so is the whole of Europe.
Yeah, because...
Clearly inflammatory, isn't it?
No.
Designed to scare.
If you have 10,000 people on a daily basis coming through your border illegally, without any willingness to cooperate with your authorities, then I think it's unacceptable. Because a state is a state because it has borders and is able to defend its borders, and borders have to be respected, and our laws have to be respected. And our laws say it very clearly how you can cross the border of Hungary. And if there are thousands, tens of thousands coming on a daily basis, breaking your law, coming illegally through your border, rejecting any kind of cooperation with your authorities. That's something what we cannot accept and will not accept in the future either.
Criticism is that when you wanted to do something, out goes consultation, out goes reliability, out goes the consultation with 28 other countries. You did what you wanted and you left everybody else to pick up the pieces
There was an immediate danger at the beginning of September where thousands of people, of refugees, were on the streets in Hungary, on the railways, stations, in the trains. And then the question was, in the relationship between Austria and Germany, whether we would allow these people to come to Germany or whether we would try to stop them. Hungary was not able to stop them. No other country in Europe was able to stop them. Neither Greece, nor Croatia, nor Slovenia, nor Serbia, nor Hungary, nor Austria. And that means we had to make up our minds and to find a decision. And if we would have tried to blame other European countries, if we would have tried to return the refugees to Austria or to Hungary or to another country in the neighborhood, we would have risked destabilization Europe. We would not have responded to our humanitarian obligations under the German constitution.
The terrorism is coming from France and also Belgium. Not from Germany, not from some refugees in Germany or whatsoever.
But in the meantime, you're not going to change your open door policy.
It's not a question that we want to change our open door policy. What we do is we want to improve the controls
But you're not going to change the policy, are you?
We cannot change it because they are there. They are not coming to us direct from the so-called country where we can close it. They are coming from Austria. And we have an open border with Austria. And we have an open border with Italy. We have an open border with all countries in Europe.
And these tens of thousands who are refusing to give you their names, what are you going to do with them?
Do you want us to decide that we close Schengen?
That's a very good question. Because what is European Union? Does it 28 member states? What united Europe? Money? Market? Russia? Security? No. Do you know what united Europe? Values. And why I'm absolutely sure about unity of European Union and solidarity with Ukraine, because this is not a question of the beginning, this is a question of values. And that's keep
It doesn't look so united these days, the European Union. Does it?
No.
Not over the migrant issue, not over Greece, and not over this either.
At the end of the day, both on Ukraine, both on the Greece, and I hope, strongly hope, that on the migrant crisis, Europe would be united.
We don't have corrupt judges. We have a totally corrupt judiciary, which works like a corporation and which works like a for-profit industry, and we are breaking it down, starting from this reform that will pass in fall.
Okay, so how many mafia leaders have you taken off the streets? How many mafia leaders?
Mafia leaders?
Yeah. How many have you jailed?
We don't have mafia leaders in Albania. The mafia leaders are in Europe.
Oh, really? And buying of votes still happens in your elections? Transparency International said in 2013 all parties bought votes, especially in Albania's villages and suburbs. No? Voters paid 35 euros for a vote?
If I would say to you that there is no any vote bought in Albania, I would lie, but in the same time I can say you very truthfully that all these numbers and all this generational way of talking is very harmful, is not respecting the truth.
The Anti-Corruption Coalition said in April that despite the Chief Justice setting up a financial tribunal 2 years ago to prosecute public officials for misappropriating money, not a single case had so far been heard. So how much is there really a fight against corruption going on? Not a single case heard.
The focus of the fight against corruption is to strengthen the institutions in order to prevent people from having the opportunity to engage in corruption. And so we're doing a reform of the financial administration system and introducing the GIFMIS, which is a new electronics budget management platform. And that would make it more difficult for people to indulge in corruption. I am for expediting prosecution of these people. And I've told the Attorney General, who's the Minister of Justice, to do everything in her power to ensure that people who are found to have deliberately misused government funds are punished.
People accuse you of paying lip service to reform. There was a headline, November 2013, in the Ghana web, which said simply, "Looting galore, Auditor General weeps for Ghana."
If you take those reports on an anecdotal and circumstantial, manner, you would come to the conclusion that there is an increase in corruption. This government is committed to the fight against corruption, and that's why we are committed to exposing and sanctioning corrupt officials.
Right.
As I speak, people are facing trial for various acts of corruption.
Let's talk about FIFA. FIFA 22, the World Cup that you were awarded. How scared are you that you can be stripped now of this tournament? Because FIFA is swimming in corruption. Literally, it's a byword for corruption, isn't it?
Nothing can scare us in Qatar because we have presented the best file for the 2022. FIFA is not yesterday or because of Qatar or Russia when the World Cup they are investigated. This investigation been going for the past 20 years, even before Qatar thinks to have, hosting.
Yeah, but now Sepp Blatter has been suspended. Michel Platini has been suspended.
What does Qatar to do with this? We have presented our best file.
The head of your former football association was also banned from football, Mohammed bin Hammam.
Yeah, he's the Asian association. It has nothing to do with the FIFA file. I can assure.
Well, he worked with the bid committee frequently,
never,
didn't he?
Never.
He did?
Never worked with the bid committee. Was clearly and was transparent from day one. I can tell you something.
Have you read the emails that the Sunday Times produced?
Some of people from this, or your region cannot digest that a small country like Qatar, Islamic country in the Middle East, can host 2022 Cup.
We want to create absolutely effective system for fighting against corruption. We create new anti-corruption bureau with an absolutely high level of trust in an absolutely transparent procedure for appointing the new person. And it would be launched in the 1st of December.
But two days ago, the head of cooperation from the European Union delegation to Ukraine wrote about their concerns about some of the people who were being put on this new anti-corruption unit.
Exactly.
And reminded you that EU assistance is very much, as they said in their letter to you, conditional on the efforts of Ukraine partners in the fight against corruption.
Exactly.
So they felt the need to warn you about this in the strongest possible terms 2 days ago.
And the very next day, we removed this person from the selection commission and appointed those who was proposed by the European Union.
Actually, you're getting worse in some sectors, like corruption. Tunisia dropped 20 places in the Transparency International Corruption Index between 2010 and 2014. The World Bank says it's costing you 2% of GDP, your corruption. You're going backwards on corruption. Why?
I think that for fighting corruption should be a priority in Tunisia. Fighting corruption, fighting terrorism.
It may be a priority.
Reforming.
I'm asking you why it's going backwards, though.
Because the state is weak. In democracy transition processes, we are rebuilding all the institutions. So then you go through a period where the state is weak.
The reason I ask is the UN Development Programme discovered in April that out of more than 2,000 complaints about the police, which were referred to the Inspector General in your Interior Ministry in a year, just 9 were forwarded
and it's the
for
same
prosecution.
man that I fired. It's
just
the same Inspector
9.
General, the same Inspector General
But
that
what
I
leads you to
removed.
believe it's just one man?
It's because we've dealt
He
with
wasn't,
the Ministry of Interior.
he wasn't responsible for the whole 2,000, was he?
There were over $10 billion of investment were poured into the Ministry of Interior, but the systems were weak. What we are focusing on now, in the Ministry of Interior, whether it's from procurement of use of public money to the systems, is an overhaul. But this is again being done in the middle of an imposed war on us, where the police, the same police that are accused of corruption, and some of them are, and not listening, have done heroic things, such as embrace a suicide bomber in order to save the population.
What do you think you learned from all this? What do you take away? One sentence. What have you learned?
For a small, fragile, relatively corrupt economy like Greece, to rise up and demand the opportunity to reform when Paris and Berlin have not sorted out amongst themselves how they want to restructure the Eurozone is a very hard job.
Thanks very much for being on Conflict Zone.
Thank you.